I thought we could start by unpacking one headline of our biggest newspaper, Helsingin Sanomat.
It's going to be a lie.
They described you, the quote, exposer of the grooming gang phenomenon and founder of far-right organization admired by Breivik.
Admired by Breivik.
Yes.
You see, when Breivik wrote his manifesto, it took him 2 years to write, I believe. At the start of his manifesto, he spoke highly of my actions on the street. By the end of his manifesto, he called us naive fools who believe that democracy can solve these problems. He called me a multiculturalism lover and that I am part of the problem. So, of course, the media won't write that. Yeah. They just pick the point that he praised our actions in the start. But then, obviously, we're a nationalistic organisation, and we attracted all sorts of people. But yeah, I know how they always focus on Breivik loved you, but he didn't. He actually spoke out against me in his manifesto.
Yeah, and there's in the very beginning there's this claim that you have somehow taken credit for exposing these grooming gangs, even though it was another journalist. So it says, the quote exposer.
Andrew Norfolk is the journalist for the Times newspaper who brought the grooming gangs to national headlines. He says himself, in interviews that he had known about it for years. But then when he saw the movement of the English Defence League, he then wanted to take it back from us. So he ignored it. He knew it was happening. He didn't comment on it, was too scared to. And then because the English Defence League was hitting towns and cities over this case, he then decided to report on it. So he didn't report on it for the greater good of all those children. He didn't report on it because it's his journalist duty. He reported on it because he saw us were doing it. So we'd say that we forced the media to talk about it. They had to talk about it. When you've got 5,000 young angry men marching through cities, screaming and shouting about the rape of their children, it's pretty hard to hide. And but they'd hid it as long as they could. All journalists, politicians, you speak to so many of these young victims, mums and dads who were writing and begging for help, to the police, to the politicians, they all ignored it. They all hid it.
Yeah. And what about this far-right organization?
Far-right. So I formed the English Defence League in 2009. My political views up until that point were zero, really. I am a liberal in all the senses. If you ask me my views on anything else, and it's because of those liberal values that I oppose Islam and the teachings of Islam. That's why I have so much difficulty with it. When I formed the English Defence League, we only ever spoke about Islam. We didn't move on to immigration even, because for my own beliefs at the time as well is that I'm from a town full of immigrants, so I've never been opposed to immigration. I'm opposed to Islamic immigration. I'm not opposed to immigration. So and during my years of leading the English Defence League from 2009 to 2013, the Metropolitan Police Force have a unit for national extremism where they grade organisations and people. The English Defence League, the entire time I led that movement, was a centre organisation. It is only the media that have called it far-right. What sort of far-right organisation has a lesbian and gay division, has a Jewish division, a Hindu division, speaks up for all of these people and groups? There's nothing far-right about even my views. Islam is far-right. So yeah, again, that's just a media tag and label that people are bored of, people are fed up of, and everyone reads straight through it now.
Yeah, what about EDF at the moment?
EDF, there is no EDL now, really.
There's no.
If they have a demonstration, they might get 15, 20 people. It's just, since I left, there's been no. Like, I had problems in those first 2 years trying to keep the far right, the real far right. I'm not talking about the people who talk about Islam, where everyone's branded as far right, but the real fascists far right, which is so small in number, the reality, so small in number. And in comparison, a zero threat to Europe. But the real far right, I publicly called it, Islamism, Nazism, opposite sides of the same coin. So I said I would be a hypocrite if I'm calling out Islam and not calling out the far right. So from day one, I took their flag and burned it and made videos saying you are not welcome in this movement. We hate your views. You know? You have no place. One of my convictions that people like to throw at me was for knocking out one of these neo-Nazis. I've had my own, in fact, I've probably done more than anybody in Britain to oppose the far right. I've had them, they hate me. They hate me. I'm a race-traiting Zionist to the far right, which means you're winning. But yeah, so again, it's just a label that's thrown at us to try and prevent people listening to us.
Yeah, these convictions you've had, one thing they made sure to mention in our paper was that you're inciting violence.
No, never.
And you're violent convicted criminal.
Oh, so I was convicted of violence, and just so you understand, when I was leading the English Defence League, we had other elements coming to our demonstrations that stood for the complete opposite to us. So I had to make a decision as a leader of that movement to do what I thought was best for the movement at that time. And this was 8 years ago, and I stood on stage and I read out the names of the far right because I knew they were in our crowd. And I told them, I held up a Sikh man's hand and said, this is the English Defence League. This is Britain. If you don't like what you see here, you're in the wrong movement. And then I read out their names. I said, you're not welcome in this movement. I read your comments. Their comments are based on ethno-nationalism. I'm not. So I read out their comments and said, you're using our movement for your own purposes and your own ideology. So show yourself. Come up and show yourself. And that was, which isn't the smartest thing to do. And that's my violent conviction, because when I come off stage, I was met by 50 men wearing skull and crossbone t-shirts with corkscrews and a fighting card, which was us fighting the far right. And from that point onwards, they didn't attend another one of our demonstrations. So it worked, essentially, because we didn't want them there. So then when people say about me being violent, that's a violent conviction. When I was 21 years old, I had my first brush with the law, my first ever brush with the law. And where I'm from and where I was brought up is voted the roughest town in Britain. It's got some serious problems. It's got some serious poverty problems. It's got serious crime problems. So yeah, my first conviction was when I was 21. Up until that point, I'd never had a brush with the law. And then I had no more further brushes with the law until the formation of the English Defence League. So yeah, that's my convictions, which people throw at me all the time. The point I try to raise on that is that, that if it wasn't for the upbringing I had and where I was brought up, I would have run away and hid after the first violent beating I received, because I've received multiple beatings. The first death threat, I'd have cowered. So it was never going to be female school teachers taking on Islam in Europe. Not when you see what you're faced with. So yeah, you have to take the good with the bad.
Yeah.
but and at the same time, when I say I'm 36 years old now. I've got 3 children. I'm a different man now than I was even 3-4 years ago, but certainly 15 years ago as a youngster growing up.
Yeah. And what about this clearly lack of legal protection you have? So,
yeah. Do you know I've given the police over 300? I've given up on it now. Threats. If you go on YouTube, just put in Tommy Robinson beaten up, take a pic of which video you want to watch. No one has ever been prosecuted for violently attacking me. And it's been on TV, national TV. One of the men is now in jail as an ISIS terrorist. He violently assaulted me in an unprovoked attack on our main TV channel, and the police did not arrest him. Didn't even talk to him. So that, which is one thing, is the police don't want to protect me or use the law to protect me. But what they then allow is the most degrading comments to be made about my family and my children. And they've never arrested anyone on that either. I believe I was speaking to you yourself. You saw one man that I went to find who threatened to murder my daughter. I told the police. I found out myself who he was, where he lived, and I went and gave it all to the police. They didn't arrest him. I had to go and get him. So that what I'd say is that unlevel playing field. People can see that. So all of these things that are playing out, they're playing out in public. The distrust that they're building, every time they do something like that, every time they don't act the way they should act in a fair manner, every time they censor something, it's having an adverse effect because everyone's watching and everyone's seeing it, and they don't feel happy. And essentially, if you don't like, I see the people who talk about Tommy Robinson and we don't like what he stands for, you're creating me. You're creating me with every one of your attempts to silence us. Most recently now, even the censorship levels. Where does this censorship stop? I've committed no crime. In Britain, we have stringent laws against incitement of hatred and incitement to violence. I've never been arrested on any of these crimes. I've never been arrested on any racial, religious or hatred ever. Never been investigated for it. I've never said anything that's broke the law. Yet, I can be removed from Twitter for hate. I can be removed from PayPal for hate. What example can they give me of the hate? They can't. This week I've been removed from Instagram and Facebook. Soon I think I'll be digitally removed. My banks probably. Then what's after that? What were they? The phone companies, will they get bombarded, and will the government be talking to them to stop you acting? Because this doesn't come from private businesses. This comes from pressure put on private businesses by governments. There's a video of the CEO of YouTube sitting down with multiple Labour politicians, and they're grilling him about my YouTube account, and they're telling him, why is this hate and hate? What hate? The truth is now hate. You have a problem with me telling the truth about what's happening in this country and giving facts around Islam. If they were hateful in any way, I'd be arrested for making them. So, but that is the future, and we've known it's coming. We can all see the path we're going down. Even Orwell in 1984 spoke about exactly this. And that's where we are. We're in 1984.
Yeah.
People have been removed. Not just removed, but their whole history removed. Like it didn't exist. This week, Amazon removed, I co-authored a book called Muhammad's Quran, Why Muslims Kill for Islam. And it's a best-selling book. They've just deleted the whole thing, like it never existed. So you can go on Amazon now and buy Hitler's book. You can't buy Tommy Robinson's.
You know what I mean? That's like
But this is where we're going. The level of censorship and the level of the collusion now with big tech, Silicon Valley, governments, and certain politics. It should scare everyone. It should scare everyone because the eventual outcome is they will be in complete control of everything that's said on social media. Even just today, like people are posting pictures taken of me on their Facebook, and I'll show you now. It's just a photo. So someone's posted a photo of them with their arm around me. They've received a message saying this goes against our.
We must do it. We all must do it, actually. Yeah.
This goes against our guidelines. This goes against our guidelines. And they've removed his picture.
Right.
No, it's just a picture. And it says, this post goes against our community standards. Just a picture. It's just a photo. And I can show you now, I've got hundreds of these. I'll do a video about it next week. Saying people have put up, I am Tommy. Yeah. It's removed. So essentially what they're saying now is they're policing Facebook, not just that I can't be on there, but no one can talk about me. So say if I make videos, they are now going to make sure that anyone who puts anything up around Tommy Robinson, I'm now a figure that's not allowed to be spoke about. That is insane, yeah?
Yeah,
that's insane.
What would you say to an average person who might sympathize with your views, but still is somehow on the fence, like kind of trusting the establishment and feeling like, oh, our government could never do. And
The country that I live in now is a very different country. The country I accept I live in is a different country than the country I thought I lived in. So when I started my activism in 2009, I thought I lived in the bastion of freedom. The country that gave the world freedom. The Magna Carta. All of these things. And then you learn. And there's two sorts of people. There's those that have learned and those that are yet to learn. And that's it, because you will learn and you will see. And they'll become that light bulb moment for you where you sit and you question, hold on. And Joe, for me, it's encouraging because the amount of people that I see now that say, I used to hate you. I used to hate you because I believed what they said. And then when they realise, hold on, they lied. And once they see one lie, then they'll question. And the more they question then, and now with social media, with the internet, you can hear the other side of the argument. Whereas before you couldn't. The media always had control. They say this about someone and that's what you're getting told. And that's what they want it back now with me. They want to say things to people about me and there's no way of me even answering because I'm removed from society. So, yeah, to those people, you will have that light bulb moment. I'll just say search for it because there's so much information out there now. Never listen to what the media say about someone. Listen to what that person says. So that's what you need to do in me. Listen to what I say. If you can find me being hateful, if you can find me being racist, if you can find me anything like that, then of course you can make your mind up. But when you won't find those things, then ask the question of why the media are portraying the image they are.
How do you avoid getting bitter, or how do I
avoid getting bitter?
How do you cope with that?
I'll tell you how, because if I didn't get the reaction I get when I go places, then it'd be a lot harder. Because I can see if I was wrong. It's like my children. So my children are now 7, 9 and 11. And they didn't know who Daddy was for years. It's only as they've got to the older age, when my eldest got to 9, I had to sit her down and say, listen, when you go to your new school, people might say these things about your dad. They might say your daddy's been in jail. They didn't know I'd been in jail. They thought I was working away for years ago. And so when my children go out with me anywhere, they see me get a hero's reception. They also see, which is for them, is they know my friends. They see non-white people in my house all the time. I mean, I go out and take them out with my other friend who's Muslim, and then I explain to my son, because I don't want him believing, I say, no, you see Sully's mum's black, Kenyan Muslim, and Sully's lovely, and we're very good close, and I love him. Yeah. So you see the difference between what Daddy talks about and people. So to teach my own children that, because I don't want that, because by not talking to them at first, they're reading the lies about things, and their daddy hates Muslims. But yeah, so my children get to see the reaction I get. If I was wrong, if I was hateful, I wouldn't be received the way I am when I go places. So yeah, for me, that encouragement helps me a lot. When I went to jail last year, I read every day the letters and understanding how much people felt towards that. So it's not just this. Sometimes that bit there can lead to a bit of pressure, because then I think this isn't just like, a lot of people rely on this now, or rely on me, whereas before I'm just a kid from Luton Town and behave a certain way and talk a certain way. Then I start thinking that this means a lot to other people now. So yeah.
I've been listening quite a lot to Jordan Peterson, and I think you're like acting out what he's talking about, like true speech. You know, that's our only hope, actually.
Well, if we can speak about it, we can at least solve it. But we're not even allowed to speak about it. So the first problem, like more speech. If I'm wrong, put me on TV, sit me next to the imams, let me talk about Islam. Let's at least talk about Islam. Why are they so afraid for speech? And if I'm wrong, I'll be proven wrong, won't I? But they know that the only time they've ever had me on mainstream media in Britain is when they think they've got something in their pocket to throw at me. They think they've got something that's going to humiliate me. And even back years ago when I've gone onto those shows with their most educated, established presenters, the one weapon I have that they just can't compete with is truth. You're trying to sell us a lie, and we know it's a lie, and the public can see it's a lie, and you're trying to pretend it's great, but it's not. And the real people, and the real feeling out there is now seeing that. So 10 years ago it was a lot more difficult, even though it wasn't as big, because I didn't get a great reception in public at the start. Now I do. So I can see myself that we're winning. We're winning the hearts and minds of the public, which must hurt them because they've done so much to make sure we don't. So yeah.
You know, we Finns, we've been living next to Soviet Union, so we should know better, like how to. You can criticize the system and still actually even love the people.
Yes.
So what do you think, what's the problem of seeing this? Like, your kids can understand that can be a good friend with a Muslim man and still criticize the system. So what's the problem of?
They can't get their head around. Well, it's not that they can't get their head around it. There's this loose alignment between communist Marxists, what they want, and they use Islam. They're using each other because they hate Islam as well. They hate all religion, but they're using it. So, and then I'd say a lot of those groups, like the LGBT movement, they've all been infiltrated with a political sway. Even the church. I look at some people talking for the church. I don't even think you believe in Jesus. You have absolutely just got that position for your far left agenda, political agenda. The same with, if you look through the universities, I think 90% of professors in the UK are left-leaning. And this, the infiltration of the education system and the indoctrination that's been pumped, this self-guilt, that we should somehow be guilty of who we are. And that's a massive thing now, that even with this, again, this censorship, they're in the schools telling people. So if you take away my page, which you have, it was the most engaged page, political page in Britain. It was far out. Theresa May's and Jeremy Corbyn's together didn't get the engagement that this got. By taking me away, where do those people challenge their views? Where do they hear another side of the story? Eventually, they'll be nowhere. That's what they're doing. And that's for anyone who wants to protect your culture and your identity in your country. And our identity's become a big part of this now, because they don't want us to have an identity. You can see that. They don't want us to.
Talk about politics. I think that might be, since you're not enjoying this legal protection, maybe that might be. I think
that's the one. There's a couple of things. I always said I didn't want to be a politician. I've always said that. No interest in it at all. I have some people say, too late, you already are. Not too late, but essentially, and that's just because I have such a feeling towards them. I just think you've sold us out. You're so self-certain for yourself. Like my local politician, his name's Gavin Shuker. He's a Christian, apparently, a churchgoer. He held a day in Parliament to celebrate Mohammed. He organised a day to celebrate Mohammed. I saw him in Luton, and he spoke about me for 5 years. And it's the first time I saw him, and it was in a chicken shop. I said, "Can I have a word with you outside?" Went outside, I said, you held a Celebrate Mohammed Day. He said, "Yeah." I said, "What do you know about Mohammed?" He said, "I know Muslims respect him." I said, "Lots of people respected Hitler. What do you know about Mohammed to celebrate his life? What do you know about him?" And he didn't have an answer. I said, "Do you know that he beheaded, that he murdered, that he raped, that he had sex slaves?" And he just looking. I said, "You know nothing about him. You're celebrating a man's name, a man's life, that you know nothing. That is the epitome of ignorance. And yet you call me ignorant." And all these people, whether it be your mainstream media, they'll all act like, "Oh, he's ignorant on the issues." I know the issues inside out. I know Islam inside out. I know far more than any of them, politicians or journalists. And what it becomes very apparent is their ignorance. And they take that, oh, Islam must just be the same as Judaism. It must just be the same as Christianity. No, it's nothing like it. The ideology, the biggest or the main goal that I have is I want, if the citizens of Europe understood what Islam is and where it's going to bring Europe, you'd have a revolution tomorrow. It's getting those people to understand the danger that Europe's in. And that's hard to do when you've got the false power of the state, the media, working against it to try and tell them how great it is without any evidence to it. It's like, what is so great about Islam? What does it bring to Europe that's so great that we want it to, that we keep bringing more of it? And essentially, the more Islam, the less freedom.
If you put it in a nutshell, like, what is it about Islam? Like, well, of course, you've been called Islamophobic.
Yeah, obviously, a phobia is an irrational fear. It's not irrational to fear the dominance and violence and bloodshed that Islam, that's promoted throughout the Quran. I used to think a lot of Luton's problems were Pakistani, the non-integration. I just looked, and it was only when I went to prison, 2010, I spent 22 weeks on solitary confinement. So some Muslim outreach wrote to me. They sent me a Quran, of course, because they wanted to try and convert me. So I got the Quran, and I just thought, let me read this and dissect it. So every verse where it said, do not be friends with Christians or Jews, or any comment like that, I wrote the verse number. And within minutes, I'm up, verse numbers. And then I'm just, oh my God, now it makes sense. All of the things I've seen growing up, all of the things I've understood, the hostility, the frustration, the arrogance, in a way, from one community to the other, which I've never seen with anyone else. No West Indians, no Sikhs. I've never sensed this gang sort of mentality, this natural aggression, and this inwardness from their community. Not complete non-integration. Them, us. School playground, our playground, their playground. School dinner hall, everyone sat together, 10 tables of Muslims in the corner. Yeah. Everything. They self-isolate for everything, like oil and water. And when I started dissecting the Quran, then all the things started falling into place. This book, if I bring my children up, to believe that everyone is equal, that there's no superiority, there's no thing as white supremacy, we're all equal. And my town's a great town for that, and my friends can see the success that many immigrants have brought to the town. And if I brought my children up to believe that they are fundamentally superior to those children, because those children are not white, Islam brings all of its followers up. Muslims are brought up to believe they are completely superior, that we are all going to burn in hellfire, that we are cattle, that we are stupid, all of these things, pigs and apes, all of this doctrine and this fundamental belief of supremacy. Those teachings soon turn into hostility. If I told my children, you're better than them, they're this, they're that, then you would see, if our entire community, I tried to reverse the roles, and with Luton, because we had this group operating, Al-Mujahideen, they said there was 200 of their members, extremists, they're now a terrorist organisation. And I said to some Muslim, if we had 200 Nazis, and every day they've got stalls set up in our community, and on these leaflets every day, they're handing out these leaflets that promote hatred against everyone that's not white. And 95% of the town and we are in this one little community. Do you not think that soon that hatred will spread and you'll start witnessing it in violent and attacks and hostility? And that's what we're seeing. And that's what we see. And yeah, so.
Yeah, that's how our kids are brought up, like to.
But there comes a time when you can say that cultures, like when we say all cultures are equal. No, our culture is better. But when it comes to beliefs or people, but they are brought up, and that does turn into That attitude when they look at you, which is what we get. That's what we receive. You've brought these people in. You've told them that their culture is equal, that they can still have this Afghanistani mindset in Luton, this Pakistani mindset in Luton, and it's okay. And then we have 100 Sharia courts operating in our country. It's a recipe for disaster. It's an absolute recipe for disaster. And soon that tipping point, which is where Europe's going to head to, people have to make a choice between freedom or Islam. If you love freedom, then you need to defend it.
Our kids are like have this mindset that we are all equal and so on. That kind of makes them
Targets.
Unprepared. Yes.
Unprepared and naive. And that's why, with the grooming issue, your children need to be educated on how it happens, why it happens, and essentially who they can be friends with and not friends with. Because so many of these young girls, first of all, will meet a Pakistani or Afghani boy the same age. That's how it starts. And then they become friends with him, and then he introduces them to the older brother or the older cousin. And then they get treated well. So, and it's exciting for the young girls, because the Pakistanis and the way they operate, they're always in groups of men. So they're always partying, or in our country, they're all selling drugs, and they've all got nice cars, and they've got money. And to young 13-year-old children, they're being treated and they're being respected and they're being felt older. And then they shower them with gifts, and they just buy them phones and trainers. And then slowly they isolate them. It's a standard procedure with all of them. They get them to argue with their mums and dads. They say, your mum doesn't respect you. Your mum thinks you're a little girl. These sort of things. So then the girl's rebelling at home. And they try to get them to rebel as much as possible because they want the breakdown of the family. Now, the Sikh community in England do seminars now where they tour all of their temples, and they tell the mums, all the mums and sisters come, and they say, this is what to look out for, this is the signs, and this is how you stop it. And essentially the worst thing a family can do is isolate their daughter and fall out with them. And then when they get them in a position, they might they think they're boyfriend, girlfriend. So they're excited because they're going out with this older man who's 19 and he's cool. And then they get them in a position where they'll have sex with them, rape them. But they'll video it. And then they have the video. And then the young girl's then in a position where if she doesn't want that video to be played out, to be leaked out, if it's a Sikh girl like they use in the UK, because of their beliefs themselves on honour for their women, that's a very difficult situation for a young Sikh girl to be in. Then they're theirs. You have to sleep with this man now. You have to do this. Or they just, and what you hear with the crimes they're doing in UK, this isn't about sexual gratification for the men. This is about destroying those girls. It's like a weapon of war against our country and our people. The first target they go for is the women. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the mass rape of our women by what can be described as an invading army. You're not seeing these gangs operate from the Sikh community, the Hindu community, the Jewish community. So all you'd ask is, if you ask the question out loud, everyone wants to shout you. I'll just say, we have 2% of Britain is Pakistani Muslim men. They are responsible for 90% of the gang convictions in our country. Why? Why are 30% of all men convicted for this child gang rape called Mohammed? Why? What is going on here? And then you hear the politicians and they try and blame it on Pakistan, because Kashmir is very backward in this area of Kashmir. There's Kurdish gangs, there's Somali gangs, there's Iraqi gangs. You're all bending over to lie about the inherent belief within Islam about women, and then about our women. So women anyway are worth half of a man, but our women, and the intolerant view towards non-Muslims. The Quran is Islam divides the world in two, the house of war and the house of God. Finland will be the house of war until it becomes Islamic. So to any young Muslim who wants to justify what they're doing, it's permitted within the religious text. That's what people have to understand the true scale of the problem. So, just so you might have heard of the rape crisis and the grooming crisis in England. You've heard of Rotherham? Rotherham was the city where 1,400 children, that's the figure. That's a conservative guesstimate. So it's going to be more. 1,400 children in Rotherham now have been raped over 20 years. If you look at the demographics of Rotherham, there's only 10,000 Muslims who fit the age. There's 10,000 Muslims who live there. There's 2,800 that fit the age of the predatory men. So whether it be from 16 up until 60 years old, there's 2,800 that fit this age. That 2,800, 550 are under investigation. That's 20% of the Muslim men in that town are under investigation for the gang rape and molestation of our children. You're not talking about one or two. That's when you understand that. So Rotherham has a 3% Muslim population, 1,400 children. Telford, I actually believe these cities have been used as scapegoats. Telford, they say 1,000 children. Another big grooming city. There's only 1% of Telford is Muslim. 1,000 children. Now, they've refused public inquiries in certain towns and cities with large Muslim populations. Why do you think that is? They've refused them. They will not. Once the Muslim population gets to a certain percent, it's being kept in. Because the Muslims are everywhere. They're in the police, they're in the councils, they're in the government, they're within those towns. Say, for example, my hometown, 35% Muslim. If you've got 1,400 children from a 3% Muslim population, what do you think it's going to be like? The figures. It's huge. Yeah. The scale of it would terrify everybody. So it's just, everything for 20 years has been keep it in, because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know what to do. Why do these men think this way? Why do they act this way? And then it's like every other crime. Say, in the UK, we have female genital mutilation, where the young girls are having their clitorises mutilated by a majority Muslim practicing issue. 55,000 children have had that done to them in Britain. It's been against the law for 30 years. You can get 14 years in prison. There's not been one single prosecution. Now, so we're letting a community come into the country. We have our values. We let them have children in our country. That's a young British girl. And you're turning a blind eye to them being mutilated. Yeah? That mutilation causes long-term psychological problems. You can die from it. You can die. It causes so many problems, sometimes even with having children. It mentally scars the lady to never be able to enjoy herself sexually ever, because she's not supposed to, yeah? According to these barbarians, cavemen. Not one prosecution. Now, we wouldn't have the prison spaces to deal with that one problem. If we prosecuted both the mum and dad, who knew it's happening, it's a crime to, if you know it's happening, we prosecuted the mum and dad, where are you going to put them? We've only got 80,000 prison places. So that, we let them do that. We let them because we can't deal with that already. The same with the grooming scandal. I saw the last case, they reckon, cost £2 million to go through the courts, because you've got 30 men, all with QCs, prosecuting. I don't think they can deal with that. The amount of them that there are, the amount of gangs and men that they need to criminalise, that they need to prosecute. So they've just allowed and sacrificed a generation of children. And then the reasons that come out clearly in the report were the fear of being called racist. The fear of being called racist was enough to let men stand by whilst children were tortured and I don't know. It's I don't know what the situation is in Finland, but whilst you have such a low population, you need to really educate the masses and educate them now, and so that they're confident enough to talk about these issues, and they're not scared, because we have bred a generation of cowards. They're waking up slowly, but the real fight in them, the men in them, seems to have been purposely taken away. And yeah.
Yeah, you kind of answered already, but what concrete things could we do actually?
So concrete things, your benefit system. limit the benefits to, if you've got people here, limit it to the amount of children they have. Because so long as you pay for it, they'll have 10. So long as you pay for it, and then you're dealing with a demographical problem like we are, where it doesn't matter if we stop immigration tomorrow. The future of our country looks like it's going to be Islamic. It doesn't matter unless you address the birth rate, unless you address those issues, which you can do things. You can encourage your own citizens to have babies. If all of this immigration is needed because of a decline in birth rate, then encourage your own citizens to give birth. Encourage your own. It'd be a lot cheaper because 50% out of the Muslim population of the UK, 50% of the men are on benefits and 75% of the women. It's hardly great for our economy. When you look at the costs, and I keep saying the worrying thing is that we're a small country, but we have 22,000 Muslims on the terror watch list. Out of that 22,000, we have a priority of 3,000 who are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's 3 sets of 9 men. Nine people have to monitor them each day. It's 20 people a day monitoring them at a cost of £9 billion a year. That's to monitor 3,000. The last 4 terrorist attacks that we had in close concession last year, none of those people who committed those 4 were even in the top 3,000. So they're in the rest of the people that aren't monitored every day because we can't monitor them every day. How do you monitor 22,000 people every day? You can't. Now, my fear is that, well, it's not fear, it's a reality, that 22,000 will become 80,000 with the demographical change. In 10 years, 20 years, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And someone should be asking these questions. We can't continue to pay for everything forever, can we? We can't continue to monitor an army that we've created, that's been created in our own country. So yeah, those questions have to be asked, and freedom of speech is a very key point to it, because unless you can talk about it, how are you ever going to solve it? Yeah. We're in trouble. Yeah. We're in trouble. Yeah. There's not, you know, when you accept that, when you sit there, so you search for the answers, years ago I did. Yeah. And then you just come to the grounding point that there isn't a solution that's not going to be chaotic. Yeah. To solve this problem, there's going to be chaos everywhere.
Yeah, and when we read about those grooming gangs in England, we were like, oh, that would be the worst thing.
That would never happen here.
And now it has already.
Yeah, yeah.
And the same pattern that covering up that.
The people who, one of the biggest weapons they have as well is, oh, we're only a small number. And people don't realise how quickly it changes. I think they'll keep saying that the next 10 years. And then all of a sudden they're not. Do you think they're going to be as good to us when their Islamic leaders are in power? Islam comes before everything else.
Identity is removed.
It's removed, yeah.
Just the answer to me is that why you are so dangerous.
Why?
That they have.
I'll say what they feared. They fear. So I have an ability to bring working class people together in their many thousands. And they fear that. Because as I said, if the public were aware of the scale of the problem, the scale of the rapes, there's probably been 2 million rapes when you work through the figures. If the public were aware of it, they're going to demand change. It's making them aware. And when they look at my interactions and the reach, I think probably last week, before they removed me, in that week period, 12 million people may have watched videos, but I'd done a 4-week period to check my Twitter interactions, 193 million. And then they removed me off Twitter. And 59 million people watched my videos. So essentially, the BBC can say what they want, but my viewers are far higher than this. So the monopoly they had is dead. But then now they're trying to take it back, which is what the deletion is. It took them years to get here and a lot of pressure on private businesses. But that's the future. The future is you have these massive multi-million pound corporations who, all of the people who work there are usually from a high class society. They are the sons and daughters of the elite. That's the reality of it. Everyone at the BBC is middle class with an Oxbridge double first graduation. and they're so far detached, and not just so far detached. The real, when you heard on that Panodrama, the contempt they have for us, the people who are affected by these problems, they don't care. They don't care, and that's a sickening thing to think, but I would never have accepted that the reason that journalists don't report it is because, or the reason they're not as angered and frustrated as us is because they don't care. But the more I hear of the views of these journalists, the more I find out about these journalists. They don't care. It's not their doors. It's like these politicians who bring in these refugees in. They're not living next door to them. They're not going to school with their kids. Their children would be in private school. Pretty much all of them. So it affects us, and they all like their cheap labour.
Yeah, I think in your book you said that they kind of created you by taking everything away from you, like you had nothing to lose. And I think now the vast majority, even though they might agree with everything you say, they
fear their jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is...
And even their name, you know.
Yeah, but I understand that as well. It's the reason, so it's a difficult one because I don't want to slam those people because I was the same as them. I wore a mask and I used the name Tommy Robinson because I was scared. I know what comes with this. And as a society, they've managed to get all of us, so we have borrowed as much money as we can humanly borrow. So we're all reliant on our money to pay our bills, to have our life, and for those reasons, the best of men at the minute, I can't lose my job. I cannot do that. I cannot say that. And that's the society we live in. And then it's not just because they have these organisations like Hope Not Hate, who then work actively to set an example by anyone in a good job who does say anything. They're then attacked and bombarded. So then when people see that, then they get back in their box and they keep quiet. But there'll come a time when things swing so quick, so fast, that I truly believe that. I think in Austria, if you look at the election in Austria, when the Freedom Party got into the joint coalition, and the people voted against Islam, against what's happening, you then saw a lot of the celebrities started coming out, confident enough to then make comments. The singers making comments about, because you can bet that a lot of these people think it. They're just too scared to say it. And I think that when it swings and the masses rise up against it, I think you'll be surprised how quickly it turns. Because there's going to be a lot of people thinking this that are built up, and there'll be something horrific that will happen. My imprisonment brought so many people sitting on that fence, off the fence, which is a good thing. It's a benefit. The more people talking, the better. So I had so many people who would never said anything online, and then just, this is enough when we're watching this. So something else, I keep saying that none of us know what's going to happen, but something big will happen, and it will change the direction of Europe forever. Either that, or we'll all be in camps and Islam will take over. Yeah. Either way, it's not great.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. But I must say that I'm impressed that you still have compassion for us. I might say for those who are fearing for their...
No, I get it. I fully get it. You know, I thank my people every demonstration I have. I say thank you because I know what they've gone through to be there. I know that they've probably had family disagreements. I know they've probably had pressure from their wives or their husbands. I know that they've probably been frowned upon by their group of friends. And people have to go through that. And I know it takes a lot for people to go through that. So, yeah, I think it's because I know it, because I had it. So I know what they're having. I had my mum's job, my mum's work threatened. She would lose her career. She'd lose her job if they found out she's my son. I've had all the family my wife's family, her parents, then all having meetings and stop, you have to stop. So I know that each one of those people who's just starting to come out of their shell, I know what they're going through to come out of it. But it was a lonely place for me. It's not now. It'd be the same for them.
This, I have a last question because we don't want to grill you. This sounds really ridiculous now. That's the most ridiculous question you could ask. But do you have any plans to sue the prisons that were exposing you to danger?
So currently I've just started legal proceedings against Cambridgeshire Police. I'm in court with them on the 12th of March for a 3-day trial to sue them over their actions and their harassment of my children, an incident that happened in Cambridge a few years ago. I've just started legal proceedings against the Sunday Times newspaper, who wrote an article saying I was a woman beater. Just complete lies. So they retracted it, they removed it, too late. It's gone around the world. People are still quoting it now. People are still saying now I'm a woman beater from your lies. So I've started legal proceedings against them. I've started legal proceedings against the Crown Prosecution Service for the lies told in court. There was lies where our media run stories across the world that I had direct messaged Darren Osborne, who was a terrorist, a white terrorist. I've never messaged him. And I'm reading all these news articles. I've started legal proceedings against them. Any legal proceedings cost so much money. So I've started those. I am going to take the prison system to court. We are going to do that. But you have 12 months. So at the minute, until I get to the end date, I'll do it a week before the end date, because at the minute I must have spent £40,000 in the last couple of months just on legals. I've just sent a letter to The Guardian this weekend to sue a journalist who said I'm an anti-Semite. There's no truth in that at all. There's no way they can defend that. So essentially for years, you see, if you had backers in the beginning, the first time someone told a lie, you just boom, slammed them in the court. But because we let them get away with it for so long with their lies, now I think that we have to challenge them. I've just sent letters to the Socialist Workers' Party for saying I'm a Nazi. These sort of effects. And the only reason why is because I don't care what people say. I know the public don't listen to it, but my children then at school have been getting called Nazi and fascist by other kids, and then having other problems. So I thought I wouldn't mind if people saying things to my children to do with actually my beliefs. But when it's the lies that the media are pushing, that's when I thought I'm going to put an end to this, because they can't defend in court that I'm a Nazi or that I'm an anti-Semite or any of these things. So yeah, I do have a pot of money that was left over from my legals when I got put in prison. People donated through the roof when I was in jail. So when I come out, I said, now it's time to fight back. We'll start legal proceedings. But essentially now, after being released, after just being digitally deleted, I need to now look at other plans. So, yeah.
But I think it's great if you have energy to take that battlefield also.
Yeah, that's the other thing, because it's just tiring, isn't it? Like, because you really, all the energy you're putting into this, you want to be putting into that. The reason I left the English Defence League was because I felt that my time was always being spent talking about the far right, about idiots who had joined the EDL. I thought, my whole reason for doing this is to talk about the Islamisation of my land and what they're doing in our country with the crimes. I spent more time battling my own problems. So, but essentially at the same time, yeah, I want to shut the media up with their lies.
And also, it's corruption in the legal system, that the way you've been treated. So, would be really nice to see some justice.
I wonder if I still, and the other reason I didn't want to launch the legal challenge until the Attorney General kicks my case, because he's got to kick the case, but he hasn't kicked it yet. So I thought, if they get a court date for me saying you've done this wrong, they might think do him. So that just how we can prove we're right. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, we have to stop.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
It's
thank
okay,
you
bro.
so much. Yeah.
Oh, mate.